What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this month's edition of the Final Whistle. Before we get started, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube and on podcast app. And also, if you would like to, you can help donate to the production cost of this podcast at ko-fi.com/River City 93, or you can go to rivercity93.com/donate. As always, I'm your host, Elliot Barr, and then joining me on tonight's show is my co-host, Matt Myers, and also the fabulous head coach who brought some revenge back to us, Mr. Darren Sawatzky. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for fabulous. I'm actually surprised by that moniker.
It's all good. I mean, let me ask you this, coach. Like, how do you prepare for a week where you have you have like 2 weeks off, but then you're coming right back into it, and you're the only team in League One playing two games back to back in the league against two presumably playoff-ish teams.
We prepared for Omaha, and I think it showed. I thought we probably played the best football we played against them since 22 when we beat them at their place. It was more of a complete game. I don't. If we want to talk about Naples now, I'm happy to talk about it. But it's we prepared for Omaha, and we worked to try to get something out of Naples. That was a very difficult trip, and that field in Naples. I'm not. They're going to win there for a while until people figure it out. I got the game plan in the first half wrong because I didn't understand the surface. So that's 100% on me. That field is the worst field I've seen in 7 years in League One. It's like a 1970s turf field, and I got it wrong because we went a little bit more direct, didn't get a hold of the ball, and in the second half we made the adjustment at halftime, and we got a hold of the ball. We started playing more, and we were better. So that one's on me, but it was a little difficult to prepare because we didn't know that.
So even worse than Lansing baseball fields and some of the gems that we've seen over the last few years.
Man, I always moan about these baseball outfields. It's been a big advantage for Omaha. The reason they win a lot there is because it's a very difficult place to play, and they know how to play on it. But the actual surface, I mean, we have probably 5 guys even today with super tight hamstrings and lower back issues because the surface is like playing on concrete. And they train there every day, so it's a good advantage. Fair play to them; they beat us. I'm not taking it away. They got a really good striker. We missed a mark on a set piece, but we had chances to get back in the game and get something. We didn't take them.
Yeah. See, Matt, I told you. I told you it was like an AstroTurf field. I told you.
I just refuse to believe that stuff existed still.
I'm here to tell you that it is not good.
Coach, I had a question prepared kind of on that topic of new venues. So I think there's probably 5 or 6 new places that you'll be going to play this year, and I imagine you can pick up some things on video over the course of the season. But how does maybe not having that same knowledge of what you're walking into, at least on the surface side of things, really affect your preparation, how you can be able to work with Miko, work with Connor, everybody to set the team up?
Well, first thing I would say is it's really a fail on my part with Naples because we did have somebody look at it, and the information that we got wasn't accurate. And I won't let that happen again. We have such a network of people. We know people all over the place. We'll make sure we know what's there and what we're facing. Again, there's no excuses. When you go to play in Knoxville this year, you go to play at Omaha. I think nine of the teams have a turf field, base, and there's no field like ours, you guys. Like I will tell you right now, there is no grass field in our league like ours. Alta is turf, Westchester is turf, Naples is turf. Greenville, all these other places. When teams come here, they're very excited to play because it's an actual true surface.
Yeah. It seems like it. So let's rewind back since the last time we talked. You guys have played 5 games, 2 wins, 3 losses, but one of those losses, unfortunately, being in the U.S. Open Cup. What did the team take away from that result and that performance to kind of go on this mini-ish home run that they've been on so far?
I'm not sure that we took something from that game that's influenced what happened in the other games, wins and losses. I'll tell you that, if Emmy's penalty kick goes in, momentum's change, things can happen in that game. That was a good team. I think we should have won the game. I think we did enough, but we didn't finish when we needed to finish, and we made some mistakes that really, really cost us by really good players. I'm very respectful of, Isaiah Ammo played about the best game that I've seen him play. The big kid up front was a handful. They were good. They took it to us, and full respect. Out of that, we talked about it, and nobody's happy. And I'll take 100% responsibility. We should have advanced. We should go past a team that's not in a professional league right now. But all we can do is move on, and I think we responded fairly well to that.
Yeah, and you guys were playing well. Like, you do have the 2 league wins, 2 losses, but they were very tight. How is the group handling the ups and downs versus in years past? And like, what does it say about the team's mentality to be able to still be sitting second in the table despite that?
Well, first, our league is difficult. You can say what you want to say. I mean, we have 3 losses, and that stinks, but we also have 3 wins. And it's hard to get 3 wins. It's hard to get 4 wins. It's hard to get 5 wins. Every week is a preparation. We go week by week. The league, there's a lot of parity. Some of these teams, I mean, Westchester broke the bank. Johnny Bolaños didn't come back because they paid him a lot of money. Same with Stephen Payne. They pulled him out of Madison. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win all of the games. This is a hard league to play in. Yeah. So I was very happy. I mean, if you look at the actual, set of games, we put some goals up in Tormenta, then we couldn't find the back of the net, missed a penalty, and Charlotte lost 1-0. Then we turned around and put some goals up against Alta. Then, the Madison game, we just weren't clinical enough. We just didn't finish. We weren't good enough in the final third, and then I think our preparation for Omaha was the best, most periodized, week and a half that we've been able to have since the crazy preseason. And the guys were as prepared as we could be. I talked about Naples, doesn't hurt, or it doesn't help us that Cletty and Nils Seufert have been a little banged up. Emmy's been a little banged up. We're healthy now. And today we trained, everybody trained. So, we're getting past all of that stuff, and we want to make sure that everybody's, healthy for the long term. So, there's a little bit of hills and valleys here, but the reality is we created enough chances in Charlotte to get something. We definitely created enough chances against Madison at home, and the Naples game was it was really anomalous. I'll just say this: our guys are very excited to play that team again.
I would imagine so. So I guess you already gave it to us. You gave us the injury update. Everyone's good to go, because we did see a couple of lineups where, like you mentioned, Cloudy was out or Nils was out. Everyone's good and ready to go now.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys with a little bit of, we had some stuff coming out of that crazy preseason, and I told the guys after the game that, I wasn't going to talk a lot about the preseason anymore, but that's the last residual piece. I mean, we're fit enough. Even at Naples, if I would have got the tactical part right in the first half, I think that game would have been a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But we did score a great goal. Darwin scored a great goal on them. We had, Josh Kirkland turned and dribbled through 2 guys, and he pulls the trigger. The game maybe changes. So we're getting closer. We're getting better. We just got to put more complete performances together.
Yeah. So, I guess 7 games, into the season, so far, from a coaching perspective, which players have really, surprised you positively with either the level of work they're putting in the game and training, their attitude, across the board? Like, who's really kind of been a standout for you and Mika?
Yeah, Darwin's definitely been, we knew that he would be, but what a player. I mean, Darwin's biggest gift, I think, is that he's so humble. If the game needs you to do some work, he'll do the work. If the game needs you to find a goal at the end of it, he'll find it. He's a good setup guy. He does what the game needs. Nils Seufert, fully healthy, is going to be very, very good for us. Griffin Garnett and James Sneddon both, they're progressing, they're growing. So, very happy with those guys. Matty Boldick's come back, and he's been a real spark plug for us. We need a little more production out of him. But both he and Josh Kirkland are like right on the cusp. They're like right there. And when they get over that hump, they're going to be real threats for us in this league again. So, Darwin's been the one that's been there. And obviously Maxi Schenfeld's got a lot of recognition. Maxi's a real free spirit. I love him. He's a great locker room guy. I mean, I love to be around him. Sometimes you look at what he's doing and you're like, oh boy, here it comes. But he finds ways to pull things off, and we're real happy with him too.
Yeah, Maxi is a very unique player to me, because like he plays left back, but if you ask me to describe his playing style, it almost like a deep line playmaking left back, like the way how he just creates on that side and he finds these little pockets of space. But like, how is it for you to have a player like that and just, you had him last year and he's playing a completely different role this year, contributing a lot more in the attack. How has it been? Because I mean, he's not young either. Like he's 32. It is feels like he's drinking from the fountain of youth.
Yeah, I don't. Again, he can play multiple spots for us. Different than Simon on the other side. I mean, Simon's a little, unsung hero for us. I mean, the guy just gets it done. But he's not flashy. We attack differently on the right than we do on the left. A lot of times, we give Maxi a little more freedom, and when we tweak formations a little bit, he has a little bit different role on where we have him pick the ball up. Again, when Nils is fully healthy and playing 90 minutes. It changes things because it allows us to get Maxi more involved in the attack. And I think you'll see that a little bit more with Chandler. Chandler, every game he's had an ankle roll or someone studded his foot or he took something in the back of the head. I'm waiting for a game where Chandler doesn't have a boo-boo.
Chandler has a boo. That's I feel like that's going to be a chant somewhere down the line. Going back to Darwin, he has 5 goal contributions this year. It's been a while since the team's had a left winger or someone on that left side that can be a consistent threat. How excited is the coaching staff to have that back, to having someone on that side that can not only contribute in attack but also give assists and make the field a little bit more balanced?
I think Darwin's a great inverted left winger. He can also play as a 10. We could play him with a tandem strikers, which is something that I haven't done much here, just based on how we've needed to play. But I would say that the winger core, once everybody's fully flying, I mean, there's a lot of competition. I mean, Hayden Anderson's had some good moments. Josh has looked good. Bolduc's looked good. And then obviously Addy, has been a little bit of a slow roll into the year based on just what happened to him last year. But, when we're fully healthy, it's going to cause me problems, which is a good thing. So Darwin's been great on the left. With everybody healthy, it might actually help us move Darwin inside a little bit more.
Yeah, I've noticed you've moved him, kind of what you want to call it, withdrawn, forward into the 10, spot. I don't get too worried about how people like to call things, stuff because everybody sees something a little bit different, I feel like. But I've noticed, there's been that adjustment made. Is that something that, is more of a, kind of pre-planned, hey, if this happens, then we'll slide Darwin into this role? Is it something where it's more of a, reactive to how the game, is going? When you're making these, tactical, changes, I guess, how forward thinking are you, especially with a guy like Darwin who can fill in a few different spots?
Matt, the best made plans, what I would say to you is like we always have a plan and there's if this, then that. One of the things like even this last week going into Naples, we made changes based on necessity, right? Maxi's been playing great, but he needed a half, so Beckett got one. We're hopeful that when we start to get into the Saturday to Saturday schedule, that we can do more planning. So to answer your question directly, we plan on moving guys around, and a lot of times the game dictates something a little bit different. Moving Darwin inside and getting him close to Emiliano is very important because those two have a good kinship. Soifer connects with them well, and again, when they're all fully healthy in training, I think you're going to see some real special stuff.
Yeah, and then kind of building on what Ellie was talking about with the wingers, I think we've commented on our the main show quite a bit that you have a good depth on the wing, but also they're very different styles of players available too. Do you all tend to look at them as individual pieces? Do you think of like kind of paired wingers like 'cause I kind of think like Darwin and Adi, they're a little bit more dribbly type. You got Hayden, Bolduc, who are definitely I think speedier and a little more vertical at times. Do you like to kind of pair like and like anything like that, or is it again kind of just it depends on the situation?
Well, that was a mouthful. I would
Yeah.
say that the last part of your question is probably the most important, that it depends on the game. If you play Addy and Darwin, you have 2 inverted wingers, which means you could even play a 3-4-3. You could do some different things with it. You play a 5-back system and push wingbacks up. If it's Hayden and Bolduc or Josh, you're a little bit more linear and you're running onto things. If you're playing in Omaha and you're on a postage stamp, you got to decide, are we going to try to keep the ball in a tight area or are we going to go a little more direct? If it's a little more direct, then it's your speedier, more powerful guys. The good part, and I said this in the preseason to you guys, we don't plan on playing a specific formation all year. I mean, we've switched it around a few times, but really the personality and the game that comes in front of us, that's what dictates the change. It's also form, right? And matchups. If we're playing against really fast outside backs, we got to make sure we match that a little bit, at least in the first half, before maybe we bring on trickier guys. I mean, it just depends on the game and the opponent.
Yeah. Speaking about a player, you mentioned his name already. That's kind of been a fan favorite. He also has his own fan page. I don't know if you came across that yet, Mr. Josh Kirkland. You've done some impressive things with him. We've seen him out there on the right wing. We've seen him in striker. Right now, it might be easy to categorize him as a effort or an energy guy, but like, what is something unique to his game? Because we've seen the hold up play moments. He has a good bit of strength to him. What are you seeing him developing as a number 9 or a backup number 9 to Emmy?
Again, when you're working with young kids, you do this much and you get this much. When you're working with older players, you got to do this much to get this much. And Josh was a kid that, the higher level coaches in this, state never selected him for the top teams. He was always in second and third teams. He went to Mary Washington and exploded, but the pro game's a little bit different, right? So we've slowed him down, put him in grids a little bit, and made him use his brain a little bit more. He's a powerful, fast guy, and we want him to run in behind and score goals. But you're starting to see his ability to see things quicker in tighter areas. I think he's growing like crazy. I thought he did excellent against Omaha. I mean, he wreaked havoc up front. I was hoping he would find a goal just to reward all the work he did. But I would say that Kirkland's work against Omaha is what allowed Emmy and Darwin to score the goal. I mean, we were just getting after him. So we like Josh. I think that Josh is going to grow over the next couple of years. And with his body type and his ability to score goals, he could even jump a level if he keeps growing.
Yeah. Speaking about like the youth development that you've been going on, we'll dive into that a little bit. But we haven't seen the likes of Landon or Beckett getting spot minutes here or there. How is it? You talked about this multiple times. How is it that curve of progression for them versus someone such as a Griffin Garnett or James Tanner that are getting, regular starting minutes hand over hand? How do you?
It's pro soccer, man. There's no token minutes. We're not, we want to win games. And if we lose games, I didn't try to. I'm telling you, I'm trying to win. I'm more competitive than anybody on the planet. And I'll tell you, Beckett Howell did enough last week in training and with what he's been doing that he played the entire second half in Naples, and we were good with it. Like, he's still growing. He had an unfortunate injury in the preseason that slowed him down a little bit, and Landon had the same thing. Landon went through a couple of weeks where he was struggling, and he's fighting his way back in. But there's a lot of competition. We have another guy named Melvin that hasn't gotten on the field yet, and his time's coming. Guys have outperformed each other in training. So as it relates to their development, James Snedden is just growing like crazy. Griffin is growing like crazy, and when Beckett and Landon have gotten opportunities, something's gotten in the way. Somebody else is playing better, or they've had a slight injury or something, and they're out for a little bit. So it's been a little unfortunate. We expect them to grow. We expect to see them playing minutes.
Okay.
And then building on that with the current academy group that's with the first team right now, we've seen I think 2 or 3 of them make a bench appearance thus far. How are they coming along in training?
Yeah, Andrew's doing really, really well. Brendan's been doing really well. He rolled his ankle. He's back to normal now a few weeks ago, so it took him a little time to come back. Those 4 guys, Nick Sarantakos, Brendan, Andrew, and Grafton will all go to the Pathway Classic, the USL U20 tournament next week with Connor down in Tampa, and go get some games and try to showcase and win something for us. But Andrew was very close to going in 2 of the games. And back to your earlier question, something happened within the game where I wasn't able to get him in. Brendan was getting very close to getting minutes and had his slight injury. And then right now, Sarantakos is starting to bang goals in. I think he scored 5 or 6 goals in training today, and he looked really good. So we're, you're good enough, you're old enough. And when the time is right, there's 8 teenagers in our group right now. If 8 teenagers are on the field at the right time, that means they're doing the business.
Yeah. Speaking about the squad in general, and over these, opening 7 games or whatnot of the season, Was there a moment either during a game or during a practice you was like, oh, they got it. They understand what I'm teaching them and what we're going through. Was there that moment for you?
You're talking about the team, or you're talking about the academy guys?
The team as a whole.
Look, you should get excited because we're not where we need to be yet, but you see moments of it. Okay, you're going to see some more. You're going to see some really fast attacking out of this team. It's coming. It just, for the last few years, I've run a really possession based game, and for the guys that have been here, it takes a little time for them to relearn the balance of what we're asking for. And then the new guys got to get to know Darren and everything that we're trying to do. So we're still working towards that. There were moments in that Tormenta game where we absolutely just ran at them. There were moments in the Omaha game where we did the same. That's, in the end, it's going to be a lot more of that and less sitting and waiting.
Yeah. I hope this is a fair question, but was that a tough transition for you to go from that possession? Because when you first came to Richmond, it felt like the way how you're playing now, it felt like how you were playing then. And then you went to the possession-heavy system. Was that a tough transition of going back to the quick counterattack and getting after it? Was that tough, or was it like just second nature?
For me, my perspective on it is the world's game's changing. If you look across the board in all leagues, and I don't compare us to the highest level leagues in the world, but if you compare to all leagues, all levels, possession-based teams, that statistic does not equate to winning or losing games. It did. The Spanish piece of real domination and winning with the ball, it's changed. It's more about what you do in the transitional moments, how you come out and attack with the ball, and how you deal with other teams doing it to you. The teams that are the most successful across the world right now are incredibly good in attacking transition. So we're adjusting to that. It being hard to adjust. I picked players in the past that were possession-based. We wanted to dominate with the ball. We've changed players that can do both. And there's an adjustment. We have work to do, but I wouldn't say it's hard. I actually think the guys really embrace it because every one of them watch all their favorite teams, whether it's Liverpool, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Barcelona. I mean, they want to play how their idols play.
So I think it's well known that you're a student of the game. Love to take in soccer any which way that you can. Is there ever that temptation to want to try to figure out and be ahead of the game on what the next evolution is, so that way it can be like the Darren solution to the current counterattacking.
You're giving me a lot of credit, and the humble Darren will tell you so. I'll give you a fast story. When I did my UEFA A, the French formation license, it was like a 2-year course, back to Europe, back, and all of that, right? It was so intensive, harder than my bachelor's degree. When we got done and they were awarding the guys that passed, and I passed it, half the group didn't. They're up there, and the French instructor says, okay, now that you've done all of this and you know all of this, forget it. And he goes, because by the time we learned all of the modern level and the way it was done, it's already evolved into something else. So it's like you need to take all the knowledge and you need to go with it. I will say, I told you guys this earlier, we were trying to sign Seufert last July. Clyde and Seufert were both 2025 signings. I was just able to get Clyde here earlier. So we had already started to adjust. I wouldn't say that is Darren's way to solve world soccer. But what I would say is, in looking at our league and looking at the resources that we have in Richmond, this is the route that we need to go in order to have success.
Understandable. I like that. And
but talk about Darren's way to solve world soccer.
It could be.
Well, my way, I guess.
Heavy a little bit of
come on.
Yeah, a little punk rock soccer has never hurt anyone. As we like to say. Talk about routes and everything. Recently, USO has decided to institute pro route in 2027. Can we get your thoughts on it and what this means for the league?
2028, but here's what I would say to you. I'm a purist, man. I love the game. I've been blessed in order to play in other countries. I've played in leagues where if you lost, you couldn't leave your house for the week, man. People would beat you up and throw stuff at you. It's not the same here. I'm a massive fan of promotion relegation, merit-based football. If you get it done, then you get rewarded. And the biggest issue, and I don't think a lot of people completely understand this, is when you get promoted in the United States, if that happens, right now you get punished because you end up having to spend 3 or 4 times more, and there's no cash windfall. In Europe, there's TV contracts where you get $3 to $30 million or whatever it works out, depending on where you go, so that you can build your facility, you can build your team so that you can compete. Our club has self relegated in 2019 because it made more sense, right? People say, "Oh, you want to be in the championship." Well, you take a team like Louisville that we play next Saturday. They spend 5, 6, 7, 8 times more money than we do, and their team reflects it. So if you're going to get promoted, there has to be a mechanism in place, and they're working on it, where there's some type of reward. There's got to be a monetary reward or resource reward so that you have the opportunity to compete. Because, in 22, when we won the regular season, we lost a lot of our top players, right? And we would expect that again. If you do so well that you get promoted, yeah, you want to keep the guys, but they're always going to be looking higher. How are you going to replace them? The only way to do that's with money.
Yeah, it was a unique announcement, but it does have its own problems and whatnot that I hope the league addresses. Looking at for just the kickers, like how does this decision of into acting pro rel then the future Division One, how does that impact the club on not only a grassroots level but also like infrastructure wise of how you're looking to build the club for the future going forward?
Well, not to let too much out of the bag. I mean, one thing I'll give Rob's always he's a golfer, so he uses the term long game all of the time. We're long gamers. We're the youth development. We're trying to do the long game. When you have the ability to have a 3-tier, well, if that's what it becomes, promotion relegation system, that attracts European clubs, that attracts corporations, that attracts television studios, for that matter, different media. Those are all resources and things that can help you grow and build your game, can make your stadium bigger, can do all of these things. So I would say that promotion relegation for the Richmond Kickers is actually a really good thing for you fans, because it will actually open up doors for us to actually have the ability to compete to get promoted. And if that happens, if you do get promoted, then that brings on more resources. So all of a sudden your stadium is bigger, your sponsorship revenues are bigger, and that allows you to compete.
Oh, okay. So 2029, 2030, kicker should be in Division One, winning the title. Perfect. That works. That works for me. Last thing before we wrap up. We got 3 games coming on the bounce. We got Westchester, the return of John Bolaños, and Matt's least favorite person, Stephen Payne. Quickly about that matchup, what are you expecting from that game? Because they do have some threats, like his Obigon and whatnot out there as well against Westchester.
So Westchester is very good on paper. They definitely invested in that team. Our guys included. I mean, both Johnny and Steven went for the money. I mean, Steven's done it twice now. I don't begrudge them if that's the way you look at things, and that's what you do, right? That's fine. There's 3 or 4 Dutch kids there, and every one of them's good. He went after some USL Championship guys. He went after some League One guys that are good players. So they're a good team on paper. It's still early for them. I think their ability to counterattack with our boy Johnny and Obregon and stuff, that we're going to have to account for that. They do play Detroit in an Open Cup game on Wednesday, so they have the bounce that we had last week. So hopefully that game on Wednesday goes into quadruple overtime, and it's snowed out and there's a lot of wind or whatever it is. But I'm very confident in our team. Mika and I were talking this afternoon. We really like our team. And, coaches say that all the time, but we really like this team. And we know that we're nowhere near where we need to be yet, but it's a good character team. So we're going to be in every one of these games. The Westchester game should be a good burner for you guys this Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you follow that one up with trip to Louisville for Jaeger Cup. How so we're getting into the portion of the season where the Jaeger games are folded in periodically. I know the real answer is you want to win every game, but with different competitions coming up, and especially something like this where Louisville they're Titan of the championship. Does it change any preparation? Also knowing that Jaeger has the weird goal scored tiebreakers and rules.
No, there's no question. And we're gonna have a little different approach to Louisville. So I'm not gonna let that out of the bag. But we're they're the best team in USL Championship. You can say whatever you want. Loudon might be leading, but I would just watch the first half of the Open Cup game, and they are a relentless counterattacking, relentless pressing and counter-pressing team with a lot of really good athletes that get paid well. I would tell you add 4 or 5 quality players to that team, and that's an MLS team. They got a great stadium. They got a great training ground. They're doing everything right there. So that is a huge opportunity for our guys. But that game's going to be difficult at best. But again, we want to try to get something out of the game. And to your point, you know what the tiebreakers are, and you know what the opportunities will be for wild cards. So all I'm going to say to you is we're going to go to Louisville and try to get something.
I know a lot of the focus against Louisville is going to be like, the young guys and getting them prepared for that moment. But how much are you also talking to the veterans and making sure they understand and they stay within themselves in that moment in Louisville? Because like you said, like that is probably one of the jewels. That's probably the jewel of lower league soccer when it comes to stadiums and atmospheres.
So truth, Elliot, we haven't talked about Louisville at all. Everything we're talking about is
Don't do that.
Everything we're talking about is Westchester. We're not fools. I mean, our guys live on cell phones, and everybody knows what's going on. They're not dumb, and a lot of our guys have played against these players and these teams. So, all of our concentrations on Westchester. After we play on Saturday, then we'll talk about Louisville. As coaches, we're preparing for everything, but and we have an idea what we want to do, but everything right now is about Westchester.
Yeah. Understandable. Don't do that. Leave that up to the podcasters to speculate and over talk and everything. The last game before we see you again in May is Greenville. And I won't ask you like how you prepare for that game, but just the uniqueness of that game, because this does seem like there's a little rivalry there between Greenville, just because of how many times these two teams have met and what's been on the line between them. Can you just speak about the intensity of that matchup?
Yeah, I feel like we've played Greenville more than any team. That might be true, actually. I don't know the statistical data right now, but that game and the Madison game, those games, they always have a little bit more fire to them. I'm friends with John Harkes. I still talk to him. He still follows the team all the time. Rick Wright's a real decent guy, and they do a good job. But they went a different route. We have 8 teenagers, and I think their average age on their team is 31. And that's okay, right? Sebastian Velasquez is very good. Leo Castro is very good. The kid Herrera in midfield is very good. Evan Lee's played 9,104 games in League One, and you're Tyler Pollack. We know what they're about. Every time we play them, we want to beat them. Not and no different than anybody else. But, again, that seems like a month away right now. In our world, in our weekly microcycle, everything's about Westchester, and we'll deal with Greenville when the time comes.
Yeah, most definitely. One last thing before we get out of here, Coach, we gotta ask you, because it was a talk on in the Discord. What happened in the Naples game? Because people were saying you look very red in the face. Irate.
Reminded me of a young Darren a little bit in expression.
I'm not young anymore, Matt. Come on.
I'm not either. I might remember yelling at you when you were wearing those ugly yellow and black stripes and everything.
Oh yeah, those days. Well, I certainly, like, my wife keeps telling me to trim up the beard because it's getting so gray.
Hey, no, keep it. Yeah, gotta keep it.
I think mine's down right now.
Gotta keep it.
Here's what I would tell you. When you've never been a professional coach or coaching staff, you don't always understand behavior. And when the game ended, I was very unimpressed with what happened with them and their staff. Afterwards, I talked to their head coach and all that stuff. They've just never done it before. I don't know if you saw their bench, but they beat us, and it was like a World Cup final, and there were a lot of digits going towards us and stuff, and I didn't understand it, so I wasn't happy about it. And I had an equipment guy and an assistant coach run right at me and drop a bunch of F-bombs in my face, and I didn't really understand that was that kind of game. So I wasn't happy. So I let them know that. And, we move forward. The game's emotional. I just hope that we're all professional enough as coaches. Just so you guys know, in the off season, I have to do like 9 modules. These things that US Soccer and the USL make us do as head coaches. I literally spend 3 hours on Saturday, 9 different times to talk about my feelings, to talk about how I create a positive work environment so that I understand harassment. And I 100% agree with all of it. But every one of those things is related to people on a sideline that don't really understand how to act. So it's a bummer. So hopefully we all learn from it and we move forward.
You know, if their World Cup final is in early April, good for them.
That's fine.
We'll hold off till November, right?
Yeah, we look forward to playing that team at home.
Yeah. That's going to be a
understood.
Fun matchup. That's going to be a fun matchup. As always, Coach, it's a pleasure talking to you. Wishing you the best because this weekend against Westchester in the future games, and we look forward to talking to you next time on the Final Whistle.
Appreciate you both. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. As always, listeners, we just want to say thank you for taking the time of your day for listening to our show. As always, you can stay in contact with the podcast at River City 93 on Blue Sky Instagram. And also, don't forget, you can also donate to the podcast at ko-fi.com/River City 93 or at rivercity93.com/donate. You can donate as much as a cup of coffee a day, or you can do a monthly donation. Either helps. So with that being said, we will holler at you guys next time. Be easy and be safe.